Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Calypso Showcase. 2 weeks ago, we looked at Calypso judging, and tonight's show can be looked at as part 2 of Calypso judging, as we have in our studio tonight 2 guests, lovely Jocelyn Seeley, and we have also Gregory Ballantyne, known in the Calypso world as GB. And they're going to be helping us to look at a few more things as it relates to Calypso judging. And what's more, you, the public, get a chance to do some adjudicating and calling us and telling us how you saw it, what points you awarded, and a few other things. But first, we're going to do a quick review of some of the basic criteria of judging Calypso. Before that, let me tell you a little bit about our 2 guests. Jocelyn Seeley, musicologist, voice major from McGill, and she's been judging Calypso and Pan for many years, been an adjudicator, she's been a commentator on the television, and one who was taken in the tradition of her father, Andrew Carr. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's so lovely of you to say that. Because one of the things I said to him was, if I could do half of what you did, I'd feel that my life was worthwhile. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. Yes, my father was a folklorist who won the Hummingbird Gold for folklore. So I'm very happy, and I really love our culture, particularly the music of it. And I always have time to follow anything that we are doing here in Trinidad and Tobago.
And GB, you're a little bit of everything. I wouldn't even start to call all the things that you do, but tell us a little bit how you feel about adjudicating from a Calypsonian point of view.
I get a tremendous joy, Alvin, from adjudicating and looking at lyrics, which is supposed to be my strong point. There are a few competitions that I judge every year, PWIA, Royal Bank, Clico, and you know, people always call me back. I take pride in doing these things. I really get a joy from sitting on the other side of the fence, because I get judged when I perform. It's nice to be able to function as a judge as well, and get a feel for how things, what judges look for.
Let's start with lyrics, and perhaps, I know I would be putting you all on the spot because we're trying to review something that we did in great detail 2 weeks ago. But Jocelyn, what are some of the first things that you look for when you're adjudicating lyrics?
Lyrics, I expect that the title of the Calypso would establish a theme. And I personally make notes, and usually there are 4 verses, and I try to make quick rough notes, but I expect the development of the theme to follow logically on. Even if I don't agree with the point that the Calypsonian is making, I expect them to expand on it, to keep my interest, the diction to be clear, and so on.
And GB, as a lyricist,
like Justin, I also look for completeness, because
you look for
completeness, you know, and attempt to develop the theme in its fullest possible capacity.
You get a summary at the end.
Yes, I always say it's like a composition. It has to start somewhere, it has to expand the theme, and it has to conclude. And if you can hear that in the topic, I think it generally has good lyrics. One of the things we didn't touch on in the lyrics last week, and one caller was very kind enough to call and remind me that it was something we could have touched on, was the question of using few words to say a lot.
Yes.
And I think the master of that is Shadow.
Yes.
And I pulled out a little clip of Shadow singing Then and Now, his 25th anniversary Independence Calypso. And let's remind ourselves of how Shadow has mastered the art of using few words to say a lot.
And I could remember a man named Eric Williams, a terrific leader, but now he is dead and gone. He led us like Moses, led the children to the promised land. He built the stages, and then he left us here to perform. From then to now, I've been around. I've watched the town that was once a colonial fancy transformed into a modern city with flyovers, walkovers, skyscrapers, and superstars. Yet we don't have no nuclear weapons. That's what makes us a modern nation. Trinidad and Tobago, my king and my queen, Trinidad and Tobago, a paradise in the Caribbean.
I remember one person telling me once, you know, the best advice you can give to a young Calypsonian coming up is go and listen to Shadow.
I find Shadow is like poetry, you know. You know, some people are narrative and they take a lot of words, but he can put so much into just a few words, and I liken it to poetry.
Yeah.
He's poetic, you know.
Very
He infers a lot of things, you see, and you have to listen
Chris
carefully.
Pinero once told me that, and I'll never forget that as a composer myself. He said, G.V., you have to try and say much more in less words. So it was interesting to hear you start the program with that very comment.
Let's go on to melody, and I think this is one of the more difficult areas to judge. What do you look for, GB?
I look for originality in melody because there is a lot of repetition in melody, and I think where a melodic line hits me is when it is fresh.
Yes.
You know, that's the first thing I look for in melody.
That's awfully hard to do because there's only 8 notes of the scale.
That is why I recognize it so much when I hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
So when you hear a good melody, it really hits you.
And doesn't remind you of something you heard before.
Yes, yes.
You know?
But it can be done. So millions of new melodies are made all the time.
Every day.
So people are very, very creative in that, yeah.
So you tend to credit it when you hear something.
When you hear something original and different, you know, it's the combination of intervals that the person puts together, and it still has to be smooth because it's a vocal thing. So if you're going to have a big leap, like an octave in One Day by Natasha or something, and you come down in the melodic line, you know, you would never make this leap and go up. It has to be easy and singable, and you have to have some memorable lines. You know, usually people put their best lines, their hook lines or whatever in the chorus.
On the chorus,
so you go away remembering that.
That's right.
You see? So, so you construct it carefully so that what you want the listener to remember will stick.
Stay with them.
Will stick in the
What I'm saying
mind.
is it requires a little extra work.
It requires work and shaping and rounding off, you know. It takes a while.
It doesn't come
like a piece of sculpture or something. You have to work it until it sits just right. If you try to force a lot of words into the melody, you destroy the line.
That's right.
So you look for that, and you look for differences between the verse and the chorus. They mustn't be too similar, and things like that.
What about compatibility of the melody with the theme?
Well, that's very important, I feel.
Very important, yeah.
Because you find all the commentary ones will generally choose a slower tempo because they want you to hear the words clearly and the message and the development and so on. But if you're looking for the soca or a party song, or it could be a serious party song, you'll find that the tempo will be quicker and the feeling of it.
I was about to quote Bally's Party Time,
yes,
which is a classic example of very strong social commentary up to party tempo. But he didn't use a laid-back mode, laid-back type of melody to get his message across.
How important is tempo to the melody?
Very, very important.
Well, it could destroy the melody if you rush it too much.
Well, I want you all to listen to something and tell me which tempo you thought worked for this tune.
All right.
This is Super Blue singing Get Something and Wave, 2 versions. One at the Grandstand Savannah and one at semifinals. Tell me what you think after.
Everybody, get something and wave. This carnival, is bacchanal. Tell them, no curfew, no curfew. Mother Murel, ringing a bell. Yeah, she, no curfew, no curfew. Mr. Police Commissioner, the action start from Panorama. Too long inside, I want to wail in a band. I ain't kill, I ain't break no law. What you timing me for? Trinidad and Tobago, I'm hearing ding-a-ling-a-ling.